We've surrendered everything. We've given up our dreams, and we've decided to pursue the lost and the broken and the hurting. And in that, next thing we know, we're evacuating orphans out into Europe.
Justin, welcome to Grow Healthy, Help People, a podcast that Accordus puts out. Welcome this morning. Where are you calling in from this morning?
Presently, we are near Destin, Florida.
Not a bad place to be, particularly as it's a bit chilly in Minnesota. Minnesota's home, is that right?
Yep, yeah, Minnesota's home base, but we travel globally as a family, and then when we're in America, we RV around to fundraise and do our coffee carts and have memories and experiences with the family.
That's awesome. Before we dive deep into Legacy Refuge, I'd love to hear a little bit of your story. You and your bride, and you've got a number of kids. Tell me the makeup of your family, what it looks like on the road with a bunch of kids in a pull-behind motorhome.
Yeah, so we have a really cool story. Actually, my wife and I, we met when we were 12. In fact, we just realized we're getting up close to the 30th year anniversary when we met. We rode the same school bus together, best friends, started dating in high school. Actually, her family helped lead me to Christ. And so we started to really spend time together as I became a Christian. And now we've been 21 years married, which is amazing. And especially because I'm only 25 years old, so I'm not sure how that works. So. And we have 5 kids. So we have a 19-year-old, we have a 16-year-old daughter from Ukraine we adopted, and we have a 13-year-old boy, a 12-year-old boy, and an 8-year-old boy. So, and we got a girl dog.
4 bio kids and 1 adopted, is that right? So for those of you that are watching, what I just said is not offensive to say bio kids or adopted kids. My family, we've got 1 adopted also. And you kind of, when you're explaining the makeup of your family, it's just a kind of a part of that information. Like, yeah, these came out of us and this one joined us through an equal amount of love, maybe even a different kind of like choosing. Our daughter that's adopted, she'll say something that makes her feel like a little bit on the outside. We're like, no, you're the only one we really chose.
Yeah.
We worked really hard to get you in this family. She's like, oh, okay, Dad,
That's right.
I kind of like how that feels. So yeah,
No, absolutely.
that's awesome. And so, Justin, your daughter that's adopted, is she adopted from Ukraine or from nationally here?
Yep, she's from
Okay.
Ukraine. Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
So there's a
tell us a
whole
little-
there's a
Go
whole
ahead.
God story there, but and by the way, just up front, everybody will get a little bit of our story, but I actually wrote a book called The Legacy of Yes, which goes into a lot of our deep story and miracles that we've seen. So as I touch on things, there is a
Okay.
deeper version that y'all can check out.
Thanks for telling me that. So where can they find that book? Is it on Amazon or what's the best place for them to buy that book?
Yep, Amazon's great. So it's just called The Legacy of Yes by me.
So how did you and your family get involved in Ukraine, Justin, or in the ministry? I keep saying Ukraine, but in Legacy Refuge. Tell us a little bit about the ministry and how you guys got involved and started that ministry.
Yeah, so we've always had this heart for, my wife's from a big adopted family. She's 1 of 3 biological, and they have 5 adopted. And so early on, we were a part of that. We went to Russia on a mission trip when we were 17 or 18, built a playground for an orphanage. And there was a key moment where one boy came up and he shared a picture. And my wife shared a picture to him of her family. He looks at one of the boys and goes, "That's your brother?" And he starts crying. And he said in Russian, "I used to live with him in another orphanage up the street." And we knew it was the same town, but we didn't know we were going to meet a kid like that knew her brother. And in that moment, my wife and I were dating at the time. We're like, look at the dichotomy. Like this one boy has rotting teeth, one pair of clothes torn. All this future holds in this little town is destruction or factories, or if anything, the statistics for orphans are awful as they age out. And so we had this moment where we're like, man, we want to adopt one day. And so fast forward, many years later, about 9 years ago, we decided we wanted to start our own adoption journey, hosted 2 girls from Ukraine, ended up they weren't available for adoption. So I flew to Ukraine to visit them and just connect with some orphanages, and then felt like the Lord knocking on our heart to start something out there. That's the very short, condensed version.
So that was 9 years ago. Is that what you said? Is that right? Before that, what did you do professionally, you and your wife? What did you guys do? Because you've been married for a decade at that point. Is that right?
Yeah. So we've been involved in both kind of ministry and business along the way. So did Bible college in Australia, and then I also I studied international business in London, and my wife was executive assistant for things. But at that time, I was just getting out of ministry, a church plant, and starting being a real estate agent at the same time. And so both of them were startups, and we were working too much. And the church plant, I finally had to step down from and focus on building our business for finances. And what's funny is, we finally started making money. Finally, out of years of young marriage and ministry, we're finally making money. We bought a home and remodeled the whole thing from top to bottom the way we wanted it. 5-bedroom house on like a little over an acre. And we're like, man, we're gonna raise all our kids here. Had 4 kids at the time, started adopting, and then feel like the Lord's like, hey, I want you to start this ministry. And we're like, no, like we just did ministry and business. It was so hard. And we finally said yes. And, we might get into this later, but we ended up having forks in the road points where we felt like we're Christians. So we felt like God was saying, hey, you can either do this part time on the side or go all in and surrender and see what I'll do, which led us to giving up our business, selling our home, which then led to COVID. And again, of another point where we felt like the Lord said, if you do nothing this year, this ministry will shrivel and die. But if you step out in faith, I'll bless it. So we moved to Ukraine in the middle of COVID with our family. And our youngest was, I believe, 2 years old at the time. And everybody thought we were insane, and we thought we were insane. And we still had no salary, not much money coming in. It was a startup nonprofit. And we moved to Ukraine. And about a month later, an old friend calls and he goes, dude, I had a dream last night that God told me an amount of money to give you in the dream. And in my dream, I'm rearranging finances and whatnot. And I was like, bro, that's crazy. He goes, it's the Lord, I'm doing it. So a month later, he wires 80 grand into our ministry account. And it just exploded us to be able to hire staff in Ukraine. We started our barista program that we do, training aged out orphans in specialty coffee and life skills, camps, programs, which then led us to the war and having systems and sustainability to evacuate busloads of kids all over Europe and do ministry. So it's just as crazy of like, as you hold in what we've seen as our dreams and our life, and then having to really go, am I really serving God's dream or am I serving the American dream? And I feel like our whole life has been this, are we really surrendered to like helping people and serving what God has, or are we selfishly just building what we want to do?
I love that. I love that you had those opportunities and you went, okay, Lord, we're all in. We're going wherever you lead us. You and I could talk about dozens of passages from Scripture where that same thing happened, where it's like, I want to go this way, and the Lord's going, no, this is a better way. So
Well,
that's
and Shay,
awesome.
what I've found amazing is always we've had these different dreams in our heart. We all have these dreams and desires. And for years, my wife and I have had this passion for Europe. Always, like International House Conference comes on, our
Before you'd
hearts
ever
are like
been to
aflame.
Europe, right?
Yeah, way before. Yeah, never been to Europe. Our hearts were aflame for it, passionate about it. Even this is a really amazing story. 20 years ago, I was in Columbus, Ohio. My aunt is from Germany and my uncle's from Ohio. And I was there. They're showing me pictures of trips they did. And I was just like, oh my goodness, I want to go so bad. Then they take me to a German town, Columbus, Ohio. And I'm sitting there at this old, like, mimic kind of bar restaurant of Germany, like the old wooden beams, the white walls. And I'm just sitting there like my heart's about to explode. Like, I want to go so bad to Germany one day. Like, I just really want to go. So then fast forward, we've given up our life now. We've surrendered everything. We've given up our dreams and we've decided to pursue the lost and the broken and the hurting. And in that, next thing we know, we're evacuating orphans out into Europe. Next thing we know, we're traveling all over Europe doing ministry to kids. And then one night we get into Germany for the first time, visit some kids. We do some clothes and food after the war, minister to them, love on them. That night we roll into an old hotel. I'm checking in and I look over and attached to the hotel is a restaurant that looked, in my mind, what I remember, very similar to the restaurant in Ohio. And God flashed me back. He's like, 20 years ago, I had this dream, this vision, this passion, and now I'm walking in it. But here's what's phenomenal is I didn't get the dream by pursuing the dream. I got the dream by surrendering my life to pursue the lost and the broken. And in that, God actually brought about these dreams that I've had for years.
Wow, that's incredible. Man, your story is pretty fabulous. Tell us a little bit more about Legacy Refuge and what you guys specifically do.
Yeah, so we work with orphans and vulnerable children. And we do that in a couple ways. One, we go around and we do VBS type kid camps for the young kids. But then we also do one of our key programs. It's called Filtered Hope. It's a barista and life skills program for orphans aging out of the system. So 17 and above, 17 to 25 years old, either aging out or have already gone out on their own because statistically, 60 to 70% of those girls end up in prostitution or human trafficking. 50 to 60% of the men end up in prison, 15 to 20% suicide. And that doesn't even mention all the other statistics of broken families, alcoholism, poverty, all of those things. So we realized early on, if we impact orphans, we change all the other statistics. And these older kids, they end up getting out of the orphanage with nobody to rely on. They're not trained for life skills. They don't know how to apply for jobs. They have no skills. And so we saw a real need there. And I'm very passionate about coffee and specialty coffee. So we decided to try this program, and now it's grown globally all over the world. It's spreading. So we go in and we do a 7 to 10 day. We call it the Taste and See Coffee Camp. So we do specialty coffee training, then we wrap in life skills like growth mindsets, emotions. It's trauma. We're trained in trauma, and then we do fun games, and we've had just great success in that, and that's growing globally. And then we realized early on that if we want to really make a dent, we need to raise up the next generation of leaders who care about orphans and vulnerable kids. So we have a building in Spain now, this incredible facility that overlooks the mountains and the sea that God blessed us with, which is a whole nother story, that we actually bring young adults from America or Europe who are Christians and want to serve. We bring them to Spain and we train them in leadership, in orphan care, in trauma-informed care, and then we send them out globally with us to serve.
Wow. So the people that would come to the training center in Spain, they would be there for how long? And then what's the next step, or how do you send them out from there? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so we have basically they can come for a 1 week option or a 3 week option. So
Okay.
some come for the first week, and then every one of those sends out. So either 1 or 3 weeks in Spain in the summer, and then like this summer, where one group's going to South Africa, one group's going to Austria, and then that group splits to Moldova and Ethiopia to go serve either in the VBS program or our barista program.
So they'll be in Spain for 1 or 3 weeks and then go serve a few more weeks somewhere else in the
Yeah,
world with that same group. Is that right?
exactly. Yeah, we in Spain you connect with your team, you get trained, you connect with your team, and then you go together serving with that same
So if
team.
there's people watching this podcast that want to know more about that, where can they find out more about that? Is it on your website?
Yeah, everything's on our website at legacyrefuge.org, and I think it's either programs or projects. You can find that program is called Legacy Rising. It's our
Legacy
leader
Refuge.
development discipleship program.
And so you mentioned to me earlier before we started recording where all you are having an impact now and where Legacy Refuge is running programs throughout the world. Give us a highlight of some of the places you guys are working now.
Yeah, so it's we still work in Ukraine, just not we're not living there now. So we do once or twice a year to Ukraine. We also keep working with orphans evacuated from Ukraine. So like in Austria, we've been to the same kids like 9 times every summer and winter since they've been evacuated. And we've developed relationships in Ethiopia, and we're working in Romania, Moldova, and South Africa. And we do some America side programs. We're doing one in French Camp, Mississippi, for some vulnerable youth there in a couple weeks.
Okay. When you say vulnerable youth, tell me more about that.
So, when we say orphan, we all think, oh, they don't have a mom or dad. But the reality is that's like 5% of the kids in the orphanage is who lost everybody. Most of the time, it's very messy. They have a mom who doesn't take care of them, or they have aunts or uncles, or it's very messy. And so we say orphans and vulnerable kids because it doesn't always sit in that classification, even if they're in the orphanage. But even beyond that, so it's really kids who are really from really tough backgrounds that have usually lost people or they're not being cared for well. And so they really need help to that next phase.
Yeah, that's what we found also. I mean, everybody that we know that has been adopted, or the vast majority that have been adopted, we've adopted through the U.S. through the foster care system. There's always a story, and you kind of go, we want this clean cut, clean line, and you're like, there's not a clean cut line. is part of the story and a part of our daughter's journey and our journey. It's just what you do. So I totally understand that. Tell us a specific story of impact, a moment over the last 9 years that stand out to you as, I mean, I know that when you were in Germany and saw the restaurant there, that was one. Tell us another story about a child that you saw impacted that has just kind of blown your mind.
I'll tell you two. One is they're both from our Filtered Hope Barista program. One of the kids, he had been in and out of an orphanage and then in foster care, but it was a rough foster care situation. It wasn't a good environment. And he came to us and did our first Filtered Hope Barista program. And he just latched on to coffee. And now he's working all over Ukraine at high level coffee shops. And he's sending me pictures of like swans in his coffee, like in latte art. And he's just like phenomenal and doing really well as a barista, which is what we want. Like we want it to be something where you don't have to be a barista, but it's something to hang your hat on and do that isn't drugs or selling drugs or prostitution. Like it's something, a good skill. So that was huge. And then another story I love is this one program we had, this one boy was pushed back on everything we said. He was kind of argumentative and pushed back on it all. And then I met him, I ran into him a few years later, and he had actually moved to America because of the war, and he was starting to speak English, but it was a thick accent. So he told me in his best English, he goes, "You might not have thought I like this program, but I love this program very much." And he goes on to tell me, he said, because of the program, I've read 10 books now, and I'm reading Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. And I'm like, that is such a win for me. Like, that they get that in them, that they have, and what's amazing is we have a lot on purpose. Like you're created on purpose. You on purpose for a purpose. You're not an accident. And my story's broken. So like my mom was an alcoholic and she died when I was young. So I get to share with them, like God can redeem your storyline. And so we always have kids coming up being like, man, I didn't think I had a purpose, but now I believe that I have a purpose for my life. So like
Well, those are not
that to me
just
is, yeah.
those are not just stories of, hey, there was this really neat moment at camp one year, but instead that was like we planted a seed. We saw, saw the seed growing, and now we see some real fruit out of that seed.
Yeah, and we have a value of deep, not wide. So we try to go back to the same kids over and over as much as we
Mm.
can. We're
Yeah.
not going to go, yeah, we could probably reach 1,000 kids if we just went to them for a day and kept cruising. But we
Yeah.
invest in the same kids because relationship is what really matters with these kids.
Man, I love that. That's awesome. So, starting the nonprofit, did you and your wife start the nonprofit from the ground up?
Yep. Yeah. So I have an entrepreneurial background and I had started different, online businesses and different things. And so it was fun to see how kind of all of that was preparation for this. So even I was videographer for a while, online marketing. And for a long time, I was like, I don't know why I'm into all this. Why am I geeking out on online marketing and video editing? But now, we started from scratch and that has been quite a journey, but we're in year 9 now. We're growing. We have staff and team and a building in Spain. And so it's been really neat to see just starting from nothing and hustling and trusting the Lord and all of that and to see this grow.
What are some of the largest challenges you see for having to run the small nonprofit? I mean, any organization, you have to do a bunch of things. You think I'm going to be with kids and having impact, and you're like, man, I'm working on the website and social media posts and 990s and accounting, and like, what are some challenges you've seen as you've been running the nonprofit?
I think they change. I'd say kind of year 1 to 5 is you're just like, we're trying to actually make a real difference. And you're trying to do everything. You're like you said, me and my wife did everything, all the videos, all the marketing, all the taxes, all the fun, and you don't have enough money. You have no money. So you're like always worried about how are we going to survive in all this. And so that was one big challenge that you had to get over. And then I think the challenge you hit once you hit that point is you have a bunch of new challenges, right? So now it's like, okay, now we have more groups asking us to come to the program than we can physically get to. And so you have so much fruit and health and growth that now even me and my wife and our other 2 staff members and our volunteers, we're at our max. So you either have to decide we intentionally shrink back so we can handle it, or you multiply leaders and systems so you can handle what's next. So, and it is, I think, I'm a big leadership person. My degree is in organizational leadership, and I obsess about leadership. And I think the biggest mistake I see is in those pivot points as entrepreneurs and starters is you still want to keep doing everything because if you don't do it, it's not going to get done the way you want it done. But that's capped your impact right off the bat. So, I've really always had like I want to get the right people in the right place and train them up so that they can carry more weight. And so, yeah, I actually love team building. I think it's the way to go. You've got to get people like finances and accountants and people that build into it. Otherwise, you're just sunk. I mean, you're maxed out.
Yeah, that's something our company does. I mentioned to you earlier. We're a back office for about 120 nonprofits now or something. So the accounting and marketing and database, and anybody who's watching this podcast, if you're leading a small or even a large nonprofit and say, this office work is just bogging us down. We need to focus on programs and impact, and we're having to work on payroll and filing 990s and entering donations. Hit me up at accordus.com. That's our company, and this is what we do. So just like Justin is saying, as you get to a point of growth, you realize we can either cap our growth or we can bring on a team. You may have a team that's great there locally. You may have somebody in your team that can do that now. That's awesome. But if you don't have that team built out today, hit us up at accordus.com. We'd love to be on that journey with you. Justin, I noticed on your website, you mentioned like monthly giving. What is your primary fundraising mechanism and tool? And is it mostly monthly giving?
No, it used to be all one-time giving. Like we did great fundraising for projects and programs, but as we've grown, like I think it was a year and a half ago, we're like, we have barely any monthly givers and we're just sinking every month now. As we get more, we have all these things happening. So we really switched focus and it's been a real blessing. And our goal, now is to have 500 people who would donate $30 a month or more. And that's like what, nowadays it's like 2 Starbucks coffees. So it's like you get a venti with whatever. And so we're just, like if people give monthly, it's a small sacrifice for them. And we're not funded by any grants or huge churches. We're just funded by individuals and people who believe in what we do and want to be a part of it. And so, yeah, if anybody's watching and want to donate monthly, it'd be a massive benefit to us.
Yeah. And so you can find out more at legacyrefuge.org. We'll put that on the closing screen and in the show notes here. Justin, it's been a joy talking with you today. Thanks for leading. Thanks for following the Lord, starting a ministry that then turned into a nonprofit that now has turned into your life's work, the ministry that you're spending a decade in now and probably many more decades to come. Have a great trip in Florida. And where are you off to next? Where's the next location?
We're slowly working up to Mississippi for that program, and then we'll head home for a few weeks, and then we're out to Europe for 2 months to go do ministry out there.
When do the programs in Spain start?
June.
In June, okay.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in those programs, and what are the primary ages for the people going to do that June program in Spain and then off from there? What's the primary ages?
We tend to say 18 to 25, but we also have a family there that's coming. We have sometimes, we usually don't do a whole lot younger unless they're with a parent, but tend to be 18 and older. And we're actually piloting our first family on mission camp this June as well. So we have about 5 families coming, and we're going to go like, how do you live on mission as a family, whether it's across the street or across the globe, and not be sucked into the American dream and really live purposeful.
I love that. I love what you're doing. Blessings. So good talking with you. Hope you have a great day and a good rest of your trip.
Thanks, Jay. God bless.
Bye-bye.